All right, we know CJ Stroud is the main reason for hope when it comes to the Texans, but could there be something just as important when it comes to the Texans reaching their goal? I'll state my case. I might have to state a case for Bobby Slowik as well. We'll also talk about the ROI battle in the trenches. That'll make sense, I promise you. We got a special guest as well. Let's go inside the locker room, another live nightly edition.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in.
It is the locker room, number one source for Texans digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me every morning and see me as well with Cody Stutes, SNL, Stutes and Locker collaboration, Monday through Friday. You can also see me nightly, 10:30, the stream. Whenever news drops, I got you covered as well. By the way, live practice reports too. So if you're following along and you're trying to get a pulse of what's going on with the Texans, I got you covered. Got a special guest I'm going to bring in. We don't need to do the introduction thing. It's Brandon Scott. Brandon, good to see you. I'm not going to ask how you're doing because it really doesn't matter. We got to talk Texans anyways. I'm not going to waste any time. We can get to that in the middle. Super chats go to the front. I want to get right in on this because I intentionally did not ask a follow-up question. I was a bad journalist when it came to our text exchange. Maybe I was a good one. Because you said you had thoughts on Bobby Slowik, and I'm really intrigued to hear where the hell this is going to go.
So I like Bobby Slowik. I'm a fan of Bobby Slowik, right?
There's a butt coming.
But it feels like, so if I put it this way, if Bobby Slowik was a theater student, he would get an A in script writing and like a D+ in improv.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that's where I am with Bobby Slowik. I can appreciate the script. I can appreciate the mind. I love hearing from him on a weekly basis. I think he's a really good coach and a really good offensive coordinator. But from what I can tell right now in the immediate reaction, to make it relevant to the Bears game, is he's really good at writing the script and following the script. But when it comes time to improv, when it comes time to deviate, when it comes time to make the adjustment, it isn't quite there the way that you would like for it to be. And I'm not saying that it's going to always be perfect or that it should always be perfect, but you would like to see some development there, or at the very least, if you're going to pick apart a win and talk about the things that you don't want to ignore in victory that you wouldn't in defeat.
Shout out to Jeff Van Gundy.
Shout out to Jeff Van Gundy for coining the term. But it is real. And to me, that's the real of Bobby Slowik. Like, I really want to hear from dude of like, hey, when do you decide to go away from the plan? What are you looking for before you decide that, hey, maybe I don't want to run the ball as much on first down, or hey, maybe I want to deviate from the script, which is good. I want to like make sure that I'm highlighting that. I think the script itself is good. But when you learn some new information through the course of the game, that the script ain't necessarily going the way exactly you want it to, or the Bears defense isn't exactly what the Colts defense was, and you're not running the ball the same, to adjust with that.
Yeah, and I think that you just put it the best way that I've heard it put, because it seems like whenever I get Bobby Slowik complaints, it's either this guy sucks or whatever. I think I woke up this morning to you know how you get drug into some conversations that Bobby Slowik was holding CJ Stroud back. I think that's a little bit dramatic, but it's funny because I think in an indirect way, I kind of said what you said on Monday without really even saying it about Bobby Slowik, because I think that he was up to something in that Bears game. And I think later on in the game, we were going to see something just absolutely crazy that would have blown our minds, because on the first series, you saw all the wide receivers at some point in the backfield. You even saw Mixon flanked out. And that made me think, okay, well, they're setting something up, like something's going to happen. But then when Joe Mixon gets hurt, that's where you do kind of got to adjust. And I also think that if we are to look at, you know, you talked about going off script. I think that off script has like a positive outlook when you watch the Texans because CJ Stroud's so good at going off script, but that's not necessarily like Bobby Slowik doesn't draw it up like that. Like CJ Stroud just happens to make the plays. And I saw Mina Kimes highlighting that they ran the ball a lot on first down this week. Last week, it was fine. I think they were averaging 7-8 a pop against Indianapolis's raggedy ass run defense. But I do think that was perfectly taken to the point where that might be something that I use every time we talk about Bobby Slowik, that he's bad at improv, but he's good at the script. I do think that's something worth watching. I also think, though, and I think this goes with D'Amico. Brandon Scott with us live in the locker room. Get your comments in if you want. Supers go to the front. I do think sometimes we kind of forget because they're ahead of schedule that this is a young coaching staff. And I say that even with D'Amico. Like I'm almost like anticipating like some sort of clock. It might never come because I think the dude's a freak of nature. I don't know how he gets his voice back, by the way. I was dead serious about that question. I really don't know. I really want to know how he does that. But I'm waiting for him to make some sort of mistake, like as a young coach, and I just haven't really seen it. And sometimes you just forget how young this coaching staff truly is.
Yeah, would the closest thing be like? So I thought the closest thing to a mistake would have been last week at the end of halftime, which wasn't even necessarily all the way on them. Now I thought they should have been kicking a field goal there no matter what. But
Yeah.
like to me,
That was a mistake. That was a mistake that was just eliminated because of the dub. You are right.
yeah, a mistake that we don't. And again, this is a good position to be in and a good place to be talking about breaking down issues within a victory. But that would, to me, be it. Like, okay, why don't they have a clearer picture of what the situation is? I know I was confused at home, but they shouldn't be as confused as I am. And also, why are you not kicking the field goal? So, like, there are two questions there. But I mean, again, we're breaking that apart, and it didn't even turn into being a much of a deciding factor into the game. The script in that game turned out to be what won them the game, I thought, and of course, Kaimi Fairbairn in both games kicking field goals from 200 yards away. So yeah, no, I think that's a good point that you make though about the youth and the inexperience. I don't want to say inexperience because they had a whole year last year. But just the youth of the coaching staff is something to keep an eye on. And like for me, it's one of the fun parts of following the staff because you're like watching them develop in real time. But again, I don't feel like it's got to be the end of the world to say, hey, this doesn't necessarily look right, or they could be better at this for a coaching staff that's only a year into it. You know, Bobby Slowik is probably going to be a head coach pretty soon. But like in the immediacy, this is the stuff to look at. Like, hey, script writing pretty good, improv not necessarily where you want it.
Yeah, and it's also weird because we don't have and you know me, like whether I'm at the flagship or whatever, if they need to be shit on, they're gonna get shit on. Like it doesn't, like there's no reason for it not to happen. But I will say it is kind of, I don't want to say I guess it's cool, but it's not nitpicking, but it's true. Like the players and the coaches are saying it. Like there used to be a time where it'd be like, we won. It doesn't matter what the hell it looked like. We effing won. Not. And now it's like you hear Stefon Diggs, you hear Tank Dell. I asked Nico Collins about it. You hear last week, Bobby Slowik said that Joe Mixon left some meat on the bone in the damn run game. He ran for a football field and a half.
Yeah,
and he said he left some meat on it. So it is kind of interesting, that you've been covering this team for a while, and I've been right there with you, and we've gone through the mud and all that, and now you're evaluating this team, and it's like it's not as simple as winning. When it seems like it goes back to like Nick Caserio has been here 4 years, D'Amico Ryans has been here for a year, CJ Stroud and Will Anderson have been here for a year. It seems like it's been longer. And it seems like it almost feels like a win should be a win at this point. Like there are a lot of teams that are young where a win is a win. It doesn't feel like that, and it feels like it's happened quick.
No, let me listen. I appreciated the tone of the locker room after the game. And, sometimes I'm doing some work that kind of will keep me out of the locker room sometimes. Sometimes I got to sit still and I'm not able to go. I have to wait till, later on in the week to really get a feel for what the locker room is like or talk to y'all who are able to go. I was able to go because it was a Sunday night game, because it was so late, and get a real good sense for how the locker room felt. And we've been in there after a win. And we understand, like, we've done this for a while. That was not the tone of a locker room after a win. And I respected it. Like I did not get any kind of celebratory feeling. I didn't even get a sense of relief. Like, sometimes you get out of a game with a win that you're not supposed to get. Maybe you steal one, maybe you survive, shooting yourself in the foot or whatever it is. I didn't even sense that sense of relief from them. It was more so of, damn, we didn't do this right, we didn't do that right. But more than anything, and this is bringing us back to the point, we didn't adjust, right? And this was without finger pointing or without throwing anybody under the bus. It was, hey, we as leaders did not adjust either in time or well enough in that game, despite winning it.
The other thing, though, that I think that they're going to find themselves, and I think this is where I think Caserio and I think Nico, and in a second, I'm gonna lay out a case that maybe the key to success in getting to where you want might not be CJ Stroud. I can explain that. I get that he's the straw that serves the drinks, but I want to explain this. You're already kind of hesitant on this. I think I might be able to convince you. We'll see. You're 1 for 1 with your ish. We'll see it. We'll see how I start. But the whole thing, like with the Texans right now, for me, and I've been saying this since, God, I don't know. It's okay to have multiple things. Like, it's okay to have multiple things that are good besides wide receiver. And I don't think that they looked enough at adding significant running back depth this year. I do not think that they did. And I just wonder if they're going to be able to run the ball. And if they can't run the ball, that goes back to Slowik. You probably shouldn't try. And then you probably have to become more of a passing team. And then are you going back into the CJ saves all butts type of mindset? That's something that kind of concerns me. Like, I don't think Mixon plays Sunday. I know Aaron Wilson said it's not serious, but I'd be surprised if he played on Sunday. And if he does, then I just feel like there's going to be like some sort of lingering thing. And I don't know if that's really worth it, especially when you're 2-0 and the rest of the division is 0-2. But I don't know that they're going to be able to run the rock. And that kind of worries me. And it seems like something that should have been an easy fix.
Yeah, so we don't even have to equivocate on this. You got Joe Mixon and everybody else in that running back room. So if Joe Mixon is either out or limited, like if they don't have the version of Joe Mixon they had a couple of weeks ago, or in the season opener and in the beginning, or for the most part against the Bears, if he is a diminished version of that or not playing at all, we're talking about a totally different dynamic in the run game for the Texans, because they don't have anything like him. I think on the criticism part, like in terms of building the team, I would look the way I would frame it is, did they put too much stock in Joe Mixon at 28 in year, what is it now? 8. He's been in the league for 30,
man. Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe Mixon, with all of the miles and wear and tear on him at this point, like, did they give too much? Because I understand, hey, Joe Mixon's gonna be our running back. Like, if you got a dude like Joe Mixon, I understand feeling like, hey, any old back should be able to be the next best guy and that be serviceable. But are you putting too much stock in 2024 Joe Mixon being able to continue that durability that he's had for the most part throughout his career? So like, that would be my critique. Like, hey, did y'all put too many eggs in the Joe Mixon basket, if you will?
Yeah, I was having this discussion with Stutz, and it was, he was laying out, well, he was top 10 in usage last year, and the backup running backs didn't even have 70 carries, and I'm like, are you on, like, making your case or my case? Because that almost seems like there's that you should be thinking, well, now we can't ask him to do that again, pushing 30, So that's the ass backwards nature of the running back position. Is sometimes, like, the strong case of their previous body of work is almost like a counter to whether they can keep it going the next year. It's kind of effed up, but that's just, I mean, the league seems to have acknowledged it. It's just kind of what it is.
But all of us, I feel like, come to a place where, like, the end point is, on this team with CJ Stroud, you shouldn't have to beat the hell out of Joe Mixon. You obviously want to be able to run the ball and have to be able to run the ball. We're not saying that, But because you've got CJ Stroud, because you have invested in all of these weapons, because you've invested in this offensive line, which I don't know.
No,
But
I got something on that.
But bring all of that together, though, is what I'm saying. You've put all of this into having you've got Bobby Slowik, like you've got all of these things going for you that would say you should have a dynamic passing game. All you got to really do is be adequate in the run game. It's not like you're asking Joe Mixon to be Derrick Henry of 2020 or Joe Mixon even of last year. So that should be the difference there.
And that's why I feel like, getting a backup running back in there that you trust would be nice, whether Joe Mixon gets hurt or not. On the chat, Texas boss says Kenyon Green was butt cheeks last game. Yeah, I mean, and that you can connect that to the center too. I think a lot of times there's communication and stuff like that. He wasn't good. He also says the Bears have a good defense. Yeah, the Colts don't though. Like it kind of works both ways. And that was one of my biggest overreactions from week to week. And I don't even really think it's an overreaction. I had to reevaluate what Joe Mixon did after I saw Josh Jacobs do the same thing. Like I had to like, you had to take a step back and say, okay, that was awesome against the Colts that we used to know that we thought were like an awesome front. But when I saw Josh Jacobs do the same thing, I said, okay, well, maybe we're coming back a little bit closer. Joe Mixon's a dog. He's great. But that was kind of an escape from reality.
Yeah. So I don't want to be weaselly about this. You hate to be the guy that's like, well, I said this and I said that. But even in real time, Landry, like I did not feel
barbecue sauce too. You batting 10% and bragging about being right or something?
Nah, no. This not even it, because I'm not sure if I was right. I kind of backed off a little bit because I felt wrong by the end of it. But during the game, like in real time, I was concerned by the offensive line's performance against the Colts. I did not feel good about the offensive line.
I've never felt good about this offensive line at any point. I like it. They can be okay. This is not going to be a really, really good offensive line. It's just not. It's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, it could be. I don't know if they get healthy. Maybe they could be
really, really good.
I think so. I think they could be.
What is really, really good? Like a top 5, top 10 O line?
No, I don't think it's a top 5 offensive line. Top 10. I think it'd be a top 10 offensive line.
Okay.
But the thing is, in real time against the Colts, I didn't feel good about it. And then by the end of the game, Joe Mixon has carried it 30 times for $150 plus. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, I feel like an idiot now for saying it. But that was my feeling at the time, and certainly now it's like, okay, I don't know how much of that was. You saw Everett put the stat out on his Twitter of how it was 101 yards after contact anyway for Joe Mixon. 101 yards after contact for Joe Mixon anyway. When we saw the game, he was running dudes over. Like he was just a badass that day. Yeah. So I'm
no, Joe Mixon's good, man. Like I'm not saying that, but 150 sticks out. Like it gets you player of the week.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a player of the week performance, and it gets duplicated 6-7 days later. That's like kind of like let's.
And Josh Jacobs is a good player. So my thing is, it was more of a good individual performance than it was indicative of what the Texans run game actually is or can be.
Right. It is the locker room here. I got Brandon Scott with me. So I laid this case out and I want to explain this. And the question is, are the Texans true keys on the edge, not under center? If the Texans are going to get where they want to go, I know that CJ Stroud, when it matters most, is going to have to prevail. You can have an elite defense, and CJ Stroud is going to have to prevail. So I understand that. But I think when it comes to avoiding letdowns that can cause you from either going on the road or hosting a playoff game, I think there are some things that you can count on more than others because they're not dependent on other things. We've talked about this offensive line, and we've talked about how we don't know how consistent this offensive line is going to be. We've talked about this run game, and we've talked about how we don't know if the Texans are going to be able to run the ball. That automatically impacts CJ Stroud to where, at the very least, you can find ways for him to struggle, and you're going to have to overcome that as a team. Now, in the past, we've seen quarterback efforts like that, where we can even go back to Deshaun in 2017 against the Patriots and the Seahawks, where the defense just wasn't able to hold them off. We saw it last year with CJ against Atlanta, where he finds Dalton Schultz first play after the 2-minute warning, and then the Texans are unable to stop the Falcons. So I think based on what the weaknesses of the Texans could be, and the fact that they directly impact CJ Stroud, and the fact that if a team is one-dimensional, a coach could potentially be able to focus on stopping him. Again, in the big situation, he's going to have to be what prevails. But based on that, I think when it comes to Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, I don't think you can stop it. Like because what are you going to do? Are you going to give Danielle Hunter all the attention and then free up Will Anderson? Because that's what we saw last year. And you kept hearing people say, Will Anderson's freeing up Grenard. I think having those two guys on the edge, and they've played quarterbacks that can get away from them. Like what's going to happen when they start playing more statuesque quarterbacks? I think when it comes to grinding it out over the course of an entire season, and like maybe CJ Stroud having an off week or whatever, which is kind of expected. I actually think you can make a case that the thing that you're going to be able to rely on producing at an elite level week to week is the edge, because of the uncertainty we have at the O-line and with Mixon. I think this is going to end up sticking out like a sore thumb.
So that is why, as you pointed out on SNL earlier today, I believe, with Cody Stoops, this is why they made Danielle Hunter the highest paid free agent acquisition so far of the Nick Caserio era. It is not an accident that happened, that damn near all of his money is guaranteed. Like that is not by accident. Okay, so there's that. Of course, we already know what the story was on draft night a couple of years ago now, or technically last year, but you understand 2023 to get Will Anderson, that was clearly not an accident. And I'll tell you this, man, to this point that you're making, still so far, 2 weeks through the season, my favorite play on defense is the Mario Edwards sack in week 1.
Oh, that they wanted him to go to jail for.
Oh man! But of course, I agree with you. That was weak. The oh my God, how dare you treat the quarterback like that? Like, man, that is his job, literally his job to do that. But the play, like, go back. I encourage, not to be tape guy, but I encourage anybody to go back and look at that play and what's going on. The reason why Mario Edwards sacks Anthony Richardson on that play, it's because Will Anderson Jr. is absorbing the double team. And he's not just absorbing the double team, but he's winning. He's beating the double team. He is whooping ass, Landry, on two. Like, it's very clear that one of those guys can't block him. And it's clear because both of them are struggling to block him. And as that's happening, Mario Edwards, the savvy veteran, is coming around the double team to get to Anthony Richardson. It's my favorite play so far on defense of the season. And to me, it's the best illustration of the exact point that you're making, what the dynamic on the edges brings to you. That's an example of Will Anderson. We saw what Danielle Hunter brought to the table against the Bears. Like, that is going to be, and I see Ryan's mentioning Autry's going to come back at some point.
And that's crazy. And the thing I like about Autry, and shout out to Ryan, I think he's going to the game this weekend in Minnesota. The thing I like about Autry is that it's not like Autry comes back and it's like, hey, Mario, sorry, man, we got to put in Autry and we're not going to see you anymore or whatever. Or Fatukasi, he's kind of like a hybrid Swiss Army knife type. So it's really like you just have more options with him. It's not like this guy's playing really good at this position and all of a sudden he's taking all of his snaps. I don't think that's the case with a guy like Autry, and that's what's even more exciting about it.
Yeah, and so you got Will and Danielle Hunter on the edge. Obviously, we mentioned Autry's coming back, but on top of what they're bringing to the table on the edge, I know this is a point about the edge. I would just add the defensive line as a whole, and I'm copying to this because I remember in the beginning when they first started making the changes to the defensive line, or as the changes unfolded in the offense of the defensive line, or on the off season, I should say, with the defensive line, I was confused at certain points, but now it totally makes sense, man. They got these badasses on the edge between Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, but they're so much bigger in the trenches, like on the inside. You know, they're their defensive tackles are just bigger body guys. You add Daniil Hunter into that mix, but talking about Mario Edwards and Fatukasi, as you just mentioned, like they are just more stout of a unit, and these guys also have shown an ability to get upfield as well. So the edge, I think, is obvious. The defensive line as a whole, I think, is probably something that I was underrating more so than I am now. Going into the season than I am now.
We were talking about this before, and it was kind of like you read between the lines, and it seemed like D'Amico just really liked what he had at D tackle, and it was like everybody's freaking out, but you heard him talk, and you're like, damn, D'Amico really likes their defensive tackles. And that was one of my big takeaways, because I mean, you don't put 100% stock. I mean, they like Dameon Pierce too, or they act like they like Dameon Pierce. So I don't want to act like it's like the gospel but he seemed to have like a quiet confidence in the D line, which I think, again, you can win ugly and you can find ways to limit CJ Stroud. I don't know how you stop what they got on the edge, which brings me to this kind of battle that can kind of connect what we've already had. We got Brandon Scott in the locker room here, the nighttime edition, SNL at 9 a.m. practice report coming down as well. So keep going. I'm going to go real nerd here. This is kind of like a Seth Payne type of thing. So there's a ROI battle going on with the Texans, and ROI, return on investment. I feel like it's like the complete opposite, because you have Daniil Hunter, who's the highest paid free agent in your tenure. You have Will Anderson, who you traded a grit for to get. And then you have guys that you aren't paying much that you're getting the most from. So you've invested heavily on the D line. You also brought in Nico. You haven't even seen him yet, but you're still 2-0. But then on the offensive line, you got two of the highest paid tackles, one of the highest paid guards. You got a second rounder at center, and you got a first rounder at guard. And you're not really getting your ROI on that, regardless of how good or bad you think they've played. There's like an ROI battle in the trenches for the Texans.
Hey, it's got to be balanced somewhere, right? Like if you are on the seesaw, that like you've got to balance it out somewhere. Like it's just gotta. It's gonna happen. I feel like you're always gonna be able to find that. It's like, man, they are paying sticker price for this, and it's no better than what the price is, and maybe not quite as good. Like, where do you bargain binge at? Like, where do you find that? And I think that is the mark of a good front office. Like, and I'm not saying that it's good to not get the return on investment on the offensive line per se, but to have to try to figure it out in another spot, like, hey, we got all of this invested in on the edge. Okay, so we obviously can't go get, I know you didn't want this guy, but we can't go get Christian Wilkins now. Like, we can't go get that kind of guy. Can we find a Foley Fatukasi? Can I interest you in a Tim Settle? Like what can you do for me lately? So like I can respect it, but I definitely see the dynamic here. Like and this is big too to me. I think like we're having fun with it. But with the offensive line, and you talk about return on investment, that's got to be better, man. Like just flat out.
Oh, for sure.
Celebrate the wins and don't take yourself too seriously. I'm all about that. But they have invested, like last year even, they had invested more in the offensive line than anybody across the NFL. Now all of those guys are actually playing, right? Like that included Kenyon Green, who did not play, right? Mm-hmm. A first-round pick. Now he's playing. All of those guys are essentially the same. They're all playing their actual positions. So this is the actual investment, right? What you actually thought it was supposed to look like. I know it's only 2 games in, but pass protection in the first game, not where you needed it to be. And really in no aspect was it where you needed to be in the second game, despite the fact that you won both of them. So talking about return on investment, credit them for what they're getting on the defensive side, both expensive and inexpensive. They are both looking like they are, well worth the price of admission. But on the offensive side, man, like, you can't have consistently Laramie Tunsil and Kenyon Green being the ones that are killing drives, like and it's not necessarily to single those dudes out, but I mean, we see what it is. So like it can't be that.
The other thing is that there's also like a larger margin for error, or I wouldn't call it reckless spending, but like there's a bigger margin for error when you have all these draft picks. So you're gonna have all these guys on rookie contracts, and you have, you know, elite players at expensive positions that are still on their rookie contracts. So I do wonder, you know, as we get to know Caserio a little bit more and how he handles different situations, I do wonder how he kind of handles these types of situations, because it can be a lot more consequential if you, on one hand, misevaluate a player and you're paying him to be elite and he's not elite when your quarterback's making this much money, your cornerback's making this much, and your edge guy's making this much. But you also might not even really do that when they are when they aren't. So there's kind of like a balance to it. It kind of goes back to like learning about D'Amico and Bobby still and Caserio.
Yeah, well, and I guess, you know, to further that, that's what makes the Blake Fisher pick also interesting, because like you're getting a window into how they would do the long-term planning. Like these guys inherited Laramie Tunsil, they inherited Titus Howard, and I think it
They
made
paid them
sense.
both though. They paid them both though.
And I know we differ a little bit on Titus Howard, but I think it made sense.
Still?
Yeah, no. Again, back to my point. That's got to be better. Like Titus, I didn't mention him, but that's absolutely got to be better. Okay, I'll cop to it. I'll cop to it.
We're still disagreeing about that. I thought maybe something.
No,
you know,
I understand. I understand what you're putting down there, but I got it. Like I understood why you would make. What I didn't get was paying them and then throwing them over at guard. But in, you know, in all honesty, it has not looked good so far. Like, or it certainly should look a lot better than it has for what they're paying. So yeah, no, I think it's 100% like something to monitor and keep an eye out throughout the season. You know, each game, like what is the offensive line looking like?
Yeah, and I also think there's an element of that's really important. D'Amico's coaching up his specialty. Like it's, you know, your defensive coordinator that's supposed to be able to make guys play their best. I don't want to say play above their potential, because these are young players. I don't know what their potential is at this point. Hell, Mario Edwards is probably playing the best he's ever played. He's been in the league for a damn decade. But Jalen Petrie in the new role, so far so good. We're going to talk on SNL about how sustainable that is, because there's some interesting stuff going on with Petrie. Back when we were talking about bringing in a safety, I said that didn't mean you were giving up on Jalen Petrie. But I digress. He's playing his best. To'o's gotten way better from year 1 to year 2. He told me that he was a fat ass last year. That's a direct quote. And he looks good. Azeez Al-Shaair looks good. So you do have also a coach on top of all this that coaches players up, which what more can you really ask for?
Yeah, no, I think that's a big part of it. Like the part of the underrating of the defense is the D'Amico element of it, right? We really do a lot of the focusing on the players in the offseason, who are they getting? And then when we get to training camp, it's more about what we're seeing out there from the players themselves. And then, you know, you mentioned Jalen Petrie. Okay, so you got a position change or like a usage change. I'm not really sure what to call it exactly, but something has changed. Something is different there.
Role change.
Yeah, role change, trying to figure that out. But behind all of that is the teachings of a D'Amico Ryans, as a teacher, and a D'Amico Ryans defense in and of itself. And again, I go back to the point I made earlier about the overall philosophy of the defense. You're talking about the edges, which is important because I think they got stars on the edge, but they also just beefed up the middle of it too, right? And then the upgrades at linebacker is key. You know, we don't mention Denzel Perryman a lot, but like to go from Denzel Perryman to Azeez Al-Shaair, I think is a bigger deal than maybe we probably would have given it credit for. And certainly they were, because they were propping up Azeez Al-Shaair a lot, you know, from the beginning of signing him all the way through training camp. But that, and you add the Henry To'oTo'o glow up, not missing Christian Harris being out sort of thing, like that to me is like the kind of the perfect storm of, hey, like you got D'Amico, you've got the personnel, you've got all of the makings of a defense that should be, like you asked me, do I think it could be a top 5 offensive line? Nah, I'm not going that far, but a top 5 defense,
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, and not just through
I
week
think so.
2, but
I think so.
consistently.
100%. I think
Yeah.
so. 100%. And I expected top 10 this year. The other thing that I like about this, and I feel like we're covering all angles of the organization. This is why I like talking to you, my friend. But the other thing that I like about them, just from like being there all the time and like following it as close as possible, is, and this is, I've said this about Caserio. I think his best skill is the ability to pivot whenever things don't go according to plan. And I think that's encouraging for once new obstacles get thrown his way. But it almost feels like the coaching staff kind of has an ability to pivot. And I don't know whether it's just D'Amico or it's D'Amico and Slowik. But if you look at, like, let's just look at the fullback position. Okay. So you had a fullback last year. Andrew Beck was kind of like your fullback. So I kind of saw the light like 10 days before cuts were made. And I was like, and I asked Nico, I was like, do y'all need a fullback? You know, like, do y'all really like need a fullback? Because last year they had Beck, but I just, what, like, do you need it, or can you make do without it? And he basically said, well, we can do what we need to do at fullback. So we've seen them use tight ends in fullback positions. We've seen them kind of open to British Brooks, and they don't necessarily need to use it. On defense, I think it's interesting because I don't know if this is the thing or not. It'll be interesting if Christian Harris comes back this year. And I don't know if Christian Harris comes back this year or not. That's just me. I have no idea. We'll see. I would bet anything it's not 4 weeks, though. That would just be, me and Stutz have been saying that from the jump. I would bet it's not 4 weeks. But let's just pretend Christian Harris comes back later in the season or whatever. Jalen Petrie played 100% of the snaps on Sunday against the Bears, okay? Whenever Christian Harris went down, I assumed, much like some people might have assumed, well, they got to keep a fullback. I assumed that we were going to see Hansen. I just thought we were going 3 traditional linebackers. I thought we were going Hansen. I thought we were going Toto. I thought we were going Azeez Al-Shaair, and that's what they were going to work with. Now we see Petrie in this new role, and he's playing 100% of the snaps. And I wonder, is that going to be the case if Christian Harris comes back this year? Or is that like even yet another elite adjustment by this coaching staff?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I was even saying, like, this was my thought after they drafted Kalen Bullock was, hey, man, maybe they might just play with more defensive backs. Like, we might just see more nickel and dime packages. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I've been breaking down the bird's eye view from the all-22 to see if they're running more nickel and dime packages. But to me, like, to your question and your point, I feel like that door is now open, right, for you to, like, let's say to your, you know, I'm working with your theory here of Christian Harris might not be back in the time that people want, you know, in the time frame that people want to see him back. But let's say he does come back eventually. And what do passing downs look like? Is Christian Harris your only linebacker on the field? You know, because you're using Jalen Petrie as the second one, and then everybody else is a defensive back in a dime package, like that sort of thing. I think that's possible. You can see that. In this particular game, I think it made sense to have Jalen Petrie out there. With against a Bears team where I think you're trying to affect the line of scrimmage a lot against an inexperienced quarterback. But yeah, no, I mean, the Jalen Petrie redemption tour / new role thing is something to monitor as he continues to play well, and how do they adjust to Christian Harris being brought back into the mix, on top of the fact that Henry To'oTo'o is also playing a lot better. Like, who do you play off the field? Who do you take off the field, and for what reasons?
And Derek asks a question. I don't try to predict injuries, but if and when Petrie gets banged up, what happens? I don't know. I mean, I know that I don't think they're gonna like have someone fill that role. I don't think they like say, hey, MJ Stewart, go out there and do whatever the hell Jalen Petrie's doing. Maybe that would probably be just another adjustment. I think it's kind of a luxury right now. I don't think there's a Jalen Petrie position. I think that's just maximizing the skill set of the players that you have. So I don't think there's don't think there's that.
So I think I know. It's weird talking about because like Jalen Petrie might be playing any different position on any given different play. So it's kind of hard to really discuss. But if you're talking about safety, Jalen Petrie, I know what their safety depth looks like. Who are their slot corners? And maybe more pronounced of a question, like who do you like for them in the slot? Or is there nickel defender?
Nobody.
Yeah.
And I do think
exist.
there will be a time where that doesn't look good with Petrie. I think teams will find some sort of way to maybe sniff that out. But yeah, I don't like anyone really like in the slot. Don't love it at all.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. So I thought this was interesting because I'm always all about like localizing stuff. That's kind of what I do. It's kind of crazy that it just took 2 weeks that Jonathan Grenard and Blake Cashman, they're already forgotten and they're soon to be freezing in Minnesota. Like you can already say like as good as they were last year that they're not missed. Like it's just like you clearly upgraded with Danielle Hunter over Grenard, and I think Azeez Al-Shaair has kind of shown you that he can play at least up to the level of Blake Cashman. He also adds that certain element of crazy, which could have gone very wrong. But these guys out of sight, out of mind. Like there's clear upgrades.
I don't mean to be hokey about it, but this is the definition of win-win to me. Like to me, everybody won here.
Yeah, good for them.
Jonathan Grenard
got to go home. Cashman got to go home. I don't know if Grenard is going to be able to handle that winter. He's going to earn his money as someone from Florida, then Louisville, and then here. That winter is going to suck for him, but Blake Cashman's right at home.
Yeah, but Jonathan Grenard is establishing a new family. Just like yourself, got a small child, So like, yeah, man, that is perfect. Set up generational wealth for his family, and got to be kind of recognized in that way. Like Jonathan Grenard going from 3rd round pick to, courted and signing a second contract. That's
unwanted
good for him.
3rd round pick.
Yeah,
unwanted 3rd round pick.
That's your effing pick, or whatever. Whatever was caught on camera. But to go from that to this is good for him. And then by the way, on a team like has yet to lose as a Minnesota Viking. Has yet to lose a game in his new spot. We'll see if that holds up and we through week 3. But everybody has won from this. And then to your point, the Texans have not missed them. I agree. Like they have not missed either one of these guys. And you could argue they upgraded at both positions, but that doesn't necessarily have to, no reason for Jonathan Grenard or Blake Cashman to feel bad about that because they got paid and they're on a team that looks like it's a lot better than probably I was giving it credit for it at the beginning. So this is going to be a better game than I thought it was going to be when I saw the schedule.
And that's the crazy thing is this is the lowest amount that the Texans have been favored by all season long. And this was kind of looked at as a bunny. This was kind of looked at as, hey, this is a bunny. I think the San Francisco, the performance obviously comes into play. There's a lot of money there, but what's your feel on this game? Because on one hand, the money and the smart people it appears to go in Minnesota. But my thing about it is this. I don't think that they're going to sneak up on you because of what they did do to San Francisco. So I think that's kind of a good thing for the Texans is that it's not going to get snuck up on. They're going to have your full attention. What is your feel of this one? Because I don't see them losing it. I put $200 on here. I put $200 on it yesterday live on this stream. I kind of got gassed up a little bit. I just said $200. Let's go. Let's bet. 1 point. Okay, they're going to Minnesota. It's Sam Darnold. That's I can't get over. It is Sam Darnold. Where are you at on this game?
Yeah, you said it. You got to it right there at the end. Like we arrive at the same place. Now you're saying it more with your chest because you actually put $200 on the game, and I will not do that. But but I will try, despite that, say with the same conviction that I think that the Texans should win this game. But having said that,
there's a lot of buts going on here.
The Vikings do have my attention by beating the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think you can just
it's not something you dismiss.
It's not something you dismiss, and I do think that they've got the coaching to make this game really interesting between Kevin O'Connell on the offensive side, like Kevin O'Connell versus D'Amico Ryans, and then Bobby Slowik versus Brian Flores are worthwhile matchups to me. So like it's going to come down obviously to, not to be cliche, but it's going to come down to the players.
There you go.
But
field position battle.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
win the turnover battle?
Who's going to dominate time of possession? All of that. Like
you know what I said though, and I want to. I don't know if this is like he's not going to answer this, at least not at the podium. Do you think? Because I think the answer is yes. But do you think that D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slowik pick up the phone and call San Francisco and at least like ask them some questions if they see something on tape? Like I mean, you studied under the guy, the guy. San Francisco actually benefits from you beating Minnesota at this point. They're buddies. It's your mentor. Do you think that type of stuff happens? Because I think the answer is yes. I just don't know if it happens in this situation. But if Brian Flores is doing all kinds of crazy stuff, why would Bobby Slowik not pick up the phone and call Kubiak or Kyle Shanahan and ask him, what did y'all see? What was going on there?
I don't mean to sound like a psycho or like all of my relationships are transactional, but I honestly don't know what the point is of having friends in the business if you don't do this. Like what is the benefit of having friends in the business if you don't call them up to ask them and who doesn't do that in their line of work? If you feel like you're somebody that and
what's
trust.
What's this guy like? I got to host with him. What's up with this dude? What's this guy's story?
Who does not do that? So like if they don't do it, it would shock me, and I would want an explanation. They don't owe me one, but I would want an explanation for why is it that you would not do that? Like why wouldn't you at least send them a text and say, "Hey man, anything? You see anything?"
Hey, what was this? What are they doing here? What did you see? Something like that. You got to make some sort of call. A couple of comments we'll circle back to. Ryan Crossingham. This is like the most inside of inside jokes. Can you break down Mike Ford as cornerback too? Brandon Scott had a Mike Ford. I think you might have been drunk when you said this. To be honest, I think you were watching the Texans game drunk.
I said CB3, by the way. And guess what? Jokes on you, Ryan, and jokes on all of you guys who made fun of that, because who the hell is their CB3? You got him?
Yeah, let me know who it is.
I'm just saying, like Mike Ford, Troy Pride, Chris Boyd. Like, I mean, what's the difference? Like, what are we doing? Like, I mean, I didn't feel like it was that ridiculous of a take because I had not seen Jeff Okudah play at that point, basically, and he's injured. And they ended up releasing C.J. Henderson even before they released Mike Ford. So, like, who are we caping for at that point?
You're doubling down on this big one.
I'm just saying, like, who's the dude? Who's the dude?
This is a little known fact about Brandon Scott. And I think I'm the only person in the world that knows this. Your girl might know this, but I don't know how many people of your coworkers know this. So I'm kind of going to put your business out there, B. Scott. And I apologize in advance for this, but I think it's a valuable thing in this moment. Brandon Scott is a Chicago cuck, and I don't know, like I don't know how else to put it. I don't know what it is. But Brandon Scott is a Chicago cuck because every once in a while I would go in Brandon Scott's office and he would just be randomly peeping what was going on Chicago sports radio. Now, in fairness, it's a good sports radio product and it's a hell of a media market. I think they had 50 people there the other day, but he is a Chicago cuck 100%, which brings me to Isaac's comment. What are the chances Caleb Williams' hairline recedes after the season? I do not know. I will ask our Chicago cuck.
Yo, that is a great question. That is a great question because if he's gonna have to play behind that offensive line, like I don't know when I have not checked to see when their bye week is, but I'd be surprised if it's not starting to slightly recede by the time that bye week is, because that offensive line is cheeks. It's terrible. It is terrible. I don't know what they're doing.
Those guards suck.
Oh my God, it's bad. It is so bad. But the joke about Chicago, for one thing,
it's not a joke, brother. It's a fact. It's not a joke, brother.
For one thing, I was scouting because we were trying to pattern our streaming similar to what they were doing.
This was months. Maybe you drew a fascination. He is a Chicago cuck. Don't let him tell you different.
And then also I'll say this. So my dad is from Gary, which is right next to Chicago. And I would use some
Did your dad rock like a Walter Payton jersey in Vegas or something like that? I think he was rocking a Payton.
Now to be fair, my dad will rock any jersey. He is not a jersey loyalist.
So he's got the late 90s, 2000s type of vibe with him.
Yeah, he'll rock whatever he's whatever city he's in. So I'd be surprised if he wasn't wearing Raiders gear when you saw him. Honestly, since we were in Vegas, because he does that. Like he goes to Seattle, he'll buy Seahawks gear. So like he's one of those types. But he's from Gary and is a Bears fan. So I would use some of the stuff they talk about to bring up in conversation with my dad. It was kind of a way to talk to my dad. But yeah, man, I guess I do have some Chicago ties, even though I have not been there since I was like 13.
Oh yeah, he checks it out. Derek says, on a team full of dogs,
I'm a dog.
None of them are on the offensive line.
Oh, I don't know. Come on.
I don't know. I think Juice is a dog.
I think Kenyon's got some dog.
I think Kenyon can be a dog. I think Laramie's just Laramie. It's not even an insult for him to be a dog. Laramie's just Laramie, and it's a good guy to have on your squad.
Yeah. Yeah, whether you think Laramie's a dog or not, man, he is like when he's not getting penalties, right? Like when he's not setting you back.
That pisses the fan base off more than anything.
But when he's not doing that, man, he actually is really good at what he does, man. And when he's engaged and when he wants to, man, he's just really good. So, like, what do you do with that? Like, when a dude is just really good at what he does. And I think Kenyon's got dog in him. I think Juice definitely's got dog in him. Shaq, I think he's got some dog in him. So, like, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but they do have to be better.
Yeah, they got to be better for sure. So we'll see. I mean, and they got a long season ahead. It's 2-0. Do you think that the division is dead? Do you think that do you think they're just going to run away with this thing?
Yeah, I mean, 2-0 versus 0-2 to everybody else. Like,
I would love to see, like, if like back in the ESPN days when ESPN cared about radio, and I worked at a station where you could just literally email like any stat, like, in the world, and they would send it right back. I do wonder like what the percentages are, because we always see the percentage making the playoffs after 0-2. What are the percentages if you start out 2-0 and the rest of your division starts out 0-2? Like, as far as like playoffs and that stuff, it's got to be high.
It's got to be.
It's got to be like above 70 at least.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about it for a couple of days now, so I wish I probably had actually looked that up. But the fact of the matter is, like, it's not even just the 2-0 versus the 0-2. It's the way it looks, right? It's not like you feel like Indianapolis just got unlucky and they're actually as good as you thought they were.
They just had Buckner go to IR. They're in trouble, man.
Yeah. They are like officially not as good as we thought they were. I think the only team, and of course we always thought that the Titans were going to be the worst of the bunch, and the only team that's probably consistent with what we thought is Jacksonville, and I don't know if I ever had like much faith in them. So
I was same squad for 3 years, bro.
Yeah, they are treading water or running in place, if you will. So yeah, no, I think that the Texans got to be. I'm not going to say like running away with it necessarily, but because it's too early, guy. I'll be that guy. But they are the clear and obvious favorite and the best team in their division. Like, to me, is the conversation with the division, I'm almost past it. I'm more so, okay, how close are they to being Chiefs Bills as opposed to, well, you know, this Colts Jags conversation I was having during the offseason.
Yeah, and I'll bring it back because I have the localized outlook 10:30 every Monday after the conclusion of Monday Night Football, where we look at the rest of the league through localized lenses and lay out where the Texans are. I'm looking at Baltimore and Cincinnati being 0-2 as much as I am the rest of the division being 0-2.
Yes.
You know, so it's like I'm looking both ways. I'm like a pinball machine looking at, am I dating myself there? The kids still, there's a lot of young bucks in this thing, wide range. But yeah, I'm looking at that almost as much as I am, you know.
Yeah, no, it matters. It's a big, to me, it's big, and because it's also like setting the landscape, right? And then the fact that the Chargers, I would add in that, like, what do you think about the Chargers being 2-0? Like, are you sold on that actually being a thing?
Yeah,
like
I am. I thought they were gonna make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think they're legitimate too. But also, like, if you do that, you got to kind of substitute, Chargers for Ravens or Chargers for Bengals or whoever you thought it was going to be. Like that part to me matters a lot. But no, it is a big deal to have what you thought were going to be major players or potential hurdles for you in the AFC not be that, and you got this clear picture of who you're chasing. You're not stuck in the muck of it all. You are chasing the Chiefs, and then Buffalo's probably right there. Honestly, they're probably right there too.
Yeah, they're playing really, 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 really good, and you're rooting for them this week. They got the Jags, so
right.
You could be, regardless of your result, you could be looking at starting the Jags off 0-4, which is wild if Buffalo beats them this week. So that'll be really interesting.
And then in a few weeks, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but in a few weeks it could be 4-0, both 4-0 Bills and Texans. In a few weeks, 4-0, 5-0, whenever that game is. If I'm looking at their schedule, I feel like both of them only got a couple of games where they face each other, and they're both winnable games. That could be a big AFC game.
I wonder what the main storyline is going to be in that one.
Oh, wonder how we'll find how many different Stefon Diggs stories can we do?
Who's getting the sit down interview with Stefon Diggs? It is going to be somebody.
Yeah, is it the receiver Burleson? I was gonna do the thing where I forget the name.
Nate
Burleson. Gonna be Nate Burleson.
Not looking all smart.
Yeah, that's gonna be that'll be my vote. If I had a betting interest, I say Nate Burleson gets it.
From like a matchup standpoint, it's kind of weird because I completely dismiss them as like a contender for the division, but from just a matchup standpoint, I think the Titans. It's going to be they're going to beat the crap out of you, man. Like, I'm not saying you're not going to win the game, but it's going to be one of those that you kind of feel, especially if they're healthy. That D line is a lot to handle, especially with Sweat and Simmons. And then you have Landry coming off the edge. They should be 2-0. Like, if you just give them Brock Osweiler, they're 2-0. Like, that's how bad their quarterback play has been.
Yeah, and 2-0 meaning they should have beaten the Bears to start the season. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, and this is a point we've been making about the Titans all offseason. It's like, man, none of us think that they're going to be good, but don't tell them that. Don't tell them that they're not good, because
they're country crazy.
Yeah, they are absolutely operating like a team that thinks they're gonna be good, and I do like to do this every year, like not just with the Texans, but like with any team that you expect to be good. And in this case, let's just make it the Texans. Like, what are the games on the schedule? Who's the team that they're gonna lose to that they shouldn't lose to? Like last year, it was the Falcons, it was the Panthers. I didn't think they were going to lose to the Jets, but their defense, I mean, like,
that was just a total perfect storm of bleep.
Yeah, and they were injured and all of that. So like who's going to be that? And I feel like the Titans are a perfect candidate of being one of those games. Like, the Texans are going to have at least one, probably two, hopefully not more, but maybe games where they'll lose a game where you're like, you know what, that shouldn't have happened. How did they lose to that opponent? And I think at least one of those Titans matchups could be that. For everything that you mentioned, Sweat, yeah. Like
Simmons. I have a lot of respect for Simmons, man.
Dude, you put them next to each other, like, that is a scary proposition.
And then Landry's coming off the side. Yeah, they got a good two-headed monster at running back too. That's kind of pretty underrated with Sharp and Pollard. Pollard's moving all right, a lot better than he did last year. So.
Yeah, and Levis, for as goofy as he is, and as much of a bleep up as he is,
you about to defend Levis? Is that what we're getting here? Is that what we're on for?
Hell nah, man. Like,
Gosh Allen, we call him Gosh Allen here.
Oh man, that is I think that's a great. I love it. That is a great
Gosh Allen.
Gosh Allen, because he's Josh Allen, but not, basically. But
just like your boy Anthony Richardson, he's LaFar Jackson.
I'm with it. I cannot argue at this point. I cannot argue at this point. But they can make some
Another
plays.
butt. There's a lot of
They
butts.
they can make plays. They are
No, they
capable
can.
of making plays. That is the whole reason why they're here, because there's no other justification for having them dudes out there. Like, what do they have to offer? Well, it's when that boom doesn't bust, right? Like, it's when you do get the boom a little bit, and so you got to be mindful of that, because this is a Texans defense that we've seen already give up some explosives. Okay, you don't want to let Will Levis be the one to play you.
Yeah, you don't. You definitely don't. The other thing, like if we're going out of the division and we're kind of playing that ping pong that I spoke of, the fact that the Chiefs lost Pacheco, it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks. Hollywood Brown, they say he's going to return in January. That's pretty cocky. I guess they're assuming they're going to be in the playoffs or something like that. That's very cocky of the Chiefs. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. And then you have, the Jets got banged up on defense. Tua, we don't know what his future is going to be. And what I think he'll be playing by then, but who knows? But all those other squads, they've kind of gotten a little bit banged up as well. I don't necessarily think Baltimore starting out 0-3 is the best thing. Like if you're looking ahead to December, if you want to localize it, because that means that there's going to be perhaps a lot of urgency for them to win ball games. They got Dallas this week, which is interesting. Vegas is acting real weird about that one because there's always like a Cowboy like gap, just like the Steelers and Packers, because people bet on it. And the Ravens are favored by 1 in Dallas. So do with that what you want. But those are the other things, is that the teams that you're competing with, they've kind of gotten a little bit banged up, and it's inevitable that it happens to the Texans too. So I'm not excluding them from it, but I'm just talking about based on what we got to look at.
Yeah. So my big thing coming after my big thing coming, in like Reaction Monday, right? When we did that, my whole like overarching theme was, man, it's good to be a Texans fan, not just because of what the Texans did, but because of everything that's going on around them. Like internally, locally, like when you hyper localize, I think it's a time to nitpick, to pick things apart, to critique, and to talk about the things that need to be better because of what's going on around you. The opportunity is special. Like, the attrition is happening early. The picture seems to, I don't know, it's early, but it
Love
seems
when
to,
Scott uses words like attrition, man.
I mean, but it is, right? I mean, that's exactly what's going on, man. Like you look around, you're like, man, you know what? The Baltimore Ravens starting off 0-2 is like not ideal for them, like because obviously, they got some flaws.
They matter. They matter around, like what happens around the league truly matters. Like it really kind of hasn't for a while, but like what happens around the league truly, like right now, I think the Texans have like the third Super Bowl odds, like the third best Super Bowl odds.
Right.
And by best, I mean favorite type of things, not like assessing it. So
and I think the number matters too. That like we're here to week 2, and instead of having a log jam of 1-1s, you've got some clear 2-0s, and you've got some clear 0-2s. Like it's not, and maybe it would be more interesting in a different way if there was more. Like what do you make of this 1-1 team? But to have these clear, for the 2-0s to be who they are, right, and then for the 0-2s to be who they are, specifically for the Texans, matters a lot. That's why the attrition word works a lot, because of who the teams actually are.
Do you have any concerns? I don't want to have the basic bitch topic. Like, is Nico Collins wide receiver 1? Yeah, obviously he is right now. Like, there's nothing. What else are you even going to say about it? But I want to focus on like more of a trend 2 weeks in, and it hasn't been as simple as this guy's not getting opportunity. He just really, Tank Dell had the drop the other day. Do you think that Tank Dell continues to be the distant third? Would be my question.
Yeah.
Do you think that trend continues?
Yeah, I think he is. And it's not even just because somebody has to be. right?
Yeah.
Like at some point, a pecking order is going to be
But
developed.
when I say distant third, I mean, like, I'm not saying, like, at first it was, well, on some weeks it might be Nico, on some weeks it might be Diggs. I still think those are possibilities. Do you think we're going to have weeks where it's Tank? Or do you think he's pushed back? Because it's not a big deal. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, if Tank Dell doesn't have an awesome year, because you still have 2 years left of him on a rookie deal, and we don't know that Diggs is going to be back. I just like, is it?
Nah,
maybe that's the consequence of it. That's an early overreaction. And it's a question. I'm asking the question.
Nah, see, I've always thought that Tank is gonna have big games and big moments. Like, I think he's gonna have big games and big moments, all while still being the third guy. Like,
now, do you think Bobby Slowik has reverted to treating him like the gadget player that a lot of people thought he was coming out of the draft? That's one of the most popular talking points in this chat right here. Is they're treating him like a gadget player. I know that's real popular talking point on Stutz's channel.
Yeah, so yes and no, because because clearly he's doing gadgety things with him, but no, because we're seeing Bobby Slowik do a lot of let's get cute stuff with other guys. Like, we saw Nico Collins in the backfield. We saw, the trickery with Joe Mixon. We saw him line out wide against Jalen Johnson and run a half-ass route too with that on
with
a
the
play.
Receiver in the backfield.
Yeah, with the receiver in the backfield. So, like, they're doing a lot of different things that are, like, odd and also creative and whatever. Like, I get it, but Tank is a receiver. They understand that. The best thing that he does is run routes. So they're gonna let him run routes, and he's gonna get open and he's gonna make a lot of plays. But he's also on the team with Nico Collins, who is making a decent case for being not just the number one receiver on this team, but a top 5 receiver in all of football. And then Stefon Diggs is still who he is. So like Tank Dell, I think, it's fun to have a conversation, but I think ultimately this benefits the Texans that they've got like this third option of somebody who can do elite things, like otherworldly things like Tank can do, which is run the routes the way he does. So he's got to catch the ball, obviously, but I think he'll do that. And, eventually that's going to be a good problem to have for the Texans. Like, oh, yeah, we got Tank on the team too.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be fine. The targets right now, like, if you want to know what the targets are, Nico's got 18, Diggs has 12, and Tank has 11. So Nico's obviously getting the majority of the targets, which why the hell should he not? He's averaging 18 yards per catch to Diggs 7 and Dell's 9. So when that happens, you're going to get a larger chunk of the pie. But I just think Tank's going to have to take advantage of his opportunities when he gets them. I think Tank will be fine. I'm not concerned.
So I don't know if I've actually said this exact thing, but I've thought this, okay, and I probably said something similar. But I've always thought that each one of them, Tank, Nico, and Diggs, could all lead the team in a different category. And if that makes sense. So, like, Tank could
touchdowns, yards, and then receptions.
So, like, Tank could easily be the touchdown guy, but Nico,
the touchdown guy's Diggs.
Yeah, or Diggs. Like, really, you could do this however you want. But I Tank with the big playability, I predicted him as the touchdown guy, Diggs maybe as the yards guy, and Nico as the catches guy, or vice versa. So like I've always thought that was a possibility.
Yeah, it's a fun time to cover the squad for sure. No doubt about that. They got practice tomorrow, so open locker room. They had Monday off, so we'll get a grasp of what's going on, practice, see who is and isn't practicing. I anticipate Mixon is not, and then we'll see if Schultz, is Schultz fully recovered, or is this going to be like one of those things that keeps on going?
Well, for me, the Mixon is the A topic, but then the immediate B topic is
drugs.
Okay, well, so like, just if I'm just going from what's the next logical question about the Mixon situation? Okay, is Damian Pierce good?
Is he healthy?
That's what I'm saying. Is he healthy? Is he good? Is he ready to go? So, like, are we talking about a Cam Akers and company type of situation? Like I can live with Damian Pierce and Cam Akers and trying to figure it out between the two of them. But if you only got one of them, and then just the committee of practice squad level guys that you got behind that, and Dari or whatever it is, like that would concern me a lot.
I love him, dude. They love Dari so much they can't quit him.
Yeah,
He's their guy.
Special teams ace, good
Good pass blocker. Good pass blocker. Does everything fine.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
that's
man.
The guy, man.
Gotta have your Dari on the team, man. I'm not mad at it
because of the legendary feat of last year. I think it's just like more accepted. I think if that had never happened, I think there'd be like more frustration with Dari Gubawale's on the team. What the hell? Yeah, but now that you have Tampa Bay, okay. There he is. Some people thought he was going to freaking kick off this year. By the way, Kaimi Fairbairn, I've said this 100 times. He needs to be peeing in a cup on the reg. If I'm the NFL, he is taking a urine test every day. Every day, I am.
No, why would you want to ruin a good thing? Why would you want to ruin a good thing? Like, if you're the NFL, why would you want to ruin a good thing like that? If you're the NFL, you don't want to ask a question that you don't truly want the answer to.
Serious question. You remember when baseball, like the big drama around baseball was, is the ball juiced? Like, is the ball juiced for kickers? They were putting up all those like 50-yard stats and stuff like that. Do you think maybe the ball's juiced? Like they're doing something different to the football now?
Man, I hope so, because I have not always had the greatest appreciation for the kicking game. Now all of a sudden I do.
Whew.
Now all of a sudden I do.
You wonder if they just need to kick it out of the end zone every time now, not even risk like the small chance that he's going to have to make a tackle at this point.
I mean, that wouldn't necessarily be
valuable. God,
I hadn't thought about that as the reason, but that would be my strategy, just to avoid the mess that is the new kickoff. Like I'm not a big fan, so that would be my strategy. I would just kick it out.
It's a weird thing. So who knows, man? Appreciate you for rolling through, B. Scott. We kind of mix it up on here. Sometimes I'm a little bit crazy, but it's the night show, so it's a fun time. I always appreciate talking to you. Appreciate you for rolling through. I know you don't sleep, so I had no problem asking you to stay up late.
Nah, man, it's good. Now I'm glad to come on, man. And look, this is one of the places where I get my Texans content.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So yeah, man, I appreciate you doing what you do. Keep doing your thing, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You going to practice this week at all? Are we going to get to see you there?
Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Sure. Yes, sir. B. Scott. What are you going to ask to Nico?
I want to see if he's got an actual answer to your question, man. I think we should press him on the voice. What's the deal with the voice, man? How do you do it? How are you?
He's got to be drinking something though, right? Like
how are you a super healer?
Yeah, dude, as someone who's like for the majority of my adult life and in college had to like talk for extended hours, like, dude, what? Help me out, man. I need to know what's going on. Now, I really want to know. I want to know about this running back situation for sure. And if I'll ask him in a way in which he'll answer. Is there any advantage to facing the Vikings the week after you? They're playing. It'll come out smoother than this. They're playing a place that you come from with like a similar system. Is there any advantage to that? Something like that.
What if I just ask them straight up? Do you feel like you guys are physical enough up front on the offensive line?
I think that's a good question. I think that's a good question. He's very because
they did it, and the only reason like it kind of feels like almost sarcastic and gotcha like, but they were effusive with their praise of him after that Indianapolis game, and it's like, okay, so update.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because it's not like, I mean, he's not going up there and saying we won, it doesn't matter. Like he's acknowledging that they're not playing as good as he would like them to. So there's got to be like what specifically, damn, we're talking ourselves. This is like a hell of like a case study of this thing, but it's like, what specifically do you need to improve, sir?
Or not to crap on Jared Patterson, but like, I don't think anybody asked him this, but something to the effect of what element does Juice Scruggs bring to your running game that others don't? or I don't know, cleaner than that, but something to that effect. Like is that the difference? Like we were talking about who was it who mentioned in the chat earlier about dogs and none of them on the offensive line, and we
Eric
immediately said that it was juice.
Yes.
So like, how much does not having the doggest of dogs on your offensive line matter when it comes time to establish and set a tone in the run game?
That was one of the preseason talking points that I thought was just we need to. That like Jared Patterson and Juice Scruggs were like neck and neck, almost like there was going to be like some sort of competition. It's like, dude, it's not close. Like they never even thought about that. That did not happen. So
yeah. I think that was some over romanticizing of the way Jared Patterson played in the pinch last year when he was forced into the role. And I think people, I'm over here speaking for people. I probably should just speak for myself, but it seemed like it was some over romanticizing of that. Hey, we saw Jared Patterson play well as a rookie in a pinch, and so now we think that he should be competing for this job when really they drafted this one guy to do the job.
Yep. All right, B. Scott, I'll see you tomorrow at practice. You can listen to SNL on your way in as well. Check it out.
That's that 9 o'clock hour.
It's at 9 o'clock, man. 9 a.m. 30 minutes on all the podcasts too. So if you want to do it on Apple or whatever, Spotify, anything. We go 9 a.m. Tuesday through Thursday, 8 to 10 reaction Mondays, and then Fridays at 4 after the final injury report drops, because that's important. You don't want to like put it out there and then the injury report kind of drops. So we adjust for the people, my friend.
Yeah, I'll jump in there, man. Got to get my prep in. Y'all help me with that. So
there you go. That's the man, B. Scott. He's all about that. He's all about that prep, about that life, about that scene. Always on the scene. Much love to B. Scott. Appreciate him for coming through. Appreciate you for coming through. Nightly 10:30 practice report tomorrow. Be on the lookout on the shorts. I'll have that. I'm also going to put out a video because I see some of you people, and I do mean you people, in the chat arguing about Caleb Williams. I'm going to give my take on this Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud video that you people, I said you people again, are giving a hard time. I'm going to drop that. Matter of fact, I'm going to record that right now. I'm going to drop that tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. For Brandon Scott, I'm Landry Locker. This has been another edition of The Locker Room. Swarm the like button, subscribe, thumbs up, right along. I am on the digital beat. Cody Stutes and me, we're going to rise and grind tomorrow at 9 a.m. But before that, I'm going to slap the hell out of myself for saying rise and grind. But either way, always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Thanks for coming through.
Landlock, got the game in the headlock. Localized every time. Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not 2. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days. Opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do.